How about old Foggy? He got life.
Kindest, purest soul I ever met. And guys like you and me, we could work a lifetime and never measure up to his decency.
Daredevil Born Again is back with episode 4, and holy crap, what another banger of an episode. The first time Disney is putting out banger after banger after banger for one of their Disney Plus series, and I am all here for it. Frank Castle's back, we got Muse, we got Matt gonna be suiting up as Daredevil once again, and the ball just keeps on rolling for continuing the legacy that the Netflix series set up. Now in this video, we're gonna be breaking down everything, of course, talking about that ending, talking about that Daredevil and Punisher scene, which was honestly the best part of the episode, plus all the little Easter eggs and references that happened during it, plus breaking down some of those comic book characters. The episode starts off with Matt going to the morgue where they have Hector Ayala's body. Now, and the thing is here, they're bagging up all this stuff, even having the White Tiger amulet there as well, which I'm actually surprised that wasn't stolen off the body of White Tiger because they heard in court that it gives people superpowers. So I guess they just didn't want his superpowers for some reason. However, the moment that came right after, I think was done really well, with Angela, his niece, coming to try to see her uncle's dead body, which is kind of traumatic. I don't know what kid would want to go see the dead body, but I feel like it's just this response to see her uncle, who has now been killed, the one that's been living with her, and get that closure of him actually being dead. Now, the thing is here that's really important with this scene is that Angela is talking about how she's angry. The cops aren't the good guys. The city is broken, and no one's doing anything about it. Just straight up point to Matt's face being like, there are no heroes doing their job. Like, no one is protecting the city properly, and now a good man is dead because of the system. Because Matt got him out of prison. He cleared his name. But by doing all of that, revealing who he really was, it got the dirty cops after him, ending Hector's life. Now, the thing is here, Angela has set up the fact that she knew that the cops are the ones that did. She knows that the cops are the one that took out her uncle, because who else would have done it? They're the ones that were targeting him. They were the ones trying to put him in jail, and now he's dead. So it only makes sense that that's exactly what happened. And this is just setting her up becoming the second White Tiger, because in the comics, Angela Del Toro is the second White Tiger who got the amulet after Hector passed away. And the amulet was sent to her in a police envelope, so now we're setting up her getting that amulet as well, but this time from the morgue. Now, I was thinking that she's definitely too young to be this hero and go down the darker path that the White Tiger has been in, and that they're gonna set up Ava Ayala and just go straight to that instead. But with the way this episode transpired and her reaction, it definitely feels like they're setting up like this revenge arc where she's gonna be going after the people who killed her uncle. She's gonna get her hands on the amulet, make herself a suit, and go out there and start being a vigilante in New York City, which still could progressively lead to what happened in the comics, where she was a hero and eventually went down the dark path of a villain. To be fair, in the comics, it also revolved the Hand, her dying and being resurrected, which is probably not going to end up anytime soon in this series, but they are definitely teasing the fact that she's going to have this path of revenge where she wants to figure out who killed her uncle and go take down the bad guys who did it, most likely in a more brutal way than what her uncle would have wanted, and maybe that's what leads her down that darker path, instead of her being killed, resurrected by the Hand, and then becoming that evil villain. But it's definitely interesting to see what they set up, and I really like this performance. The actress did a fantastic job showing that pain of her losing her uncle, and I can't wait to see what they end up doing with her, if she becomes the White Tiger, or if it's just going to go to Ava Ayala instead, the more notable one from the comics. But I think the scene that's really ironic here too is that Matt says that you have to believe that someone is going to find his killer. And I was just thinking in this moment, I'm like, Matt, it has to be you. You have to be the one to find his killer, which he does progress in this episode looking for it. So it is setting up him becoming Daredevil once again, which we did see by the end of the episode, where he goes into his Daredevil cave and he pulls out his bully clubs and starts practicing because he knows that the city needs someone to help it, and now he's going to be that hero once again, getting that call for being a hero after everything that transpired with Angela and then Frank Castle. But after we got those scenes, we ended up going into another one where we see Muse, the main villain of the season, and he's carrying a body into his secret subway lair that we saw later in the episode. And at the end of the episode, when he goes to his lair, we do see some grotesque paintings where he's taking that body, starting to take the blood out of it, and you can see bodies hanging in the ceiling, which is definitely a nod to the comics, where Daredevil finds a whole building filled with bodies hanging from hooks. So they're setting up his more grotesque version of himself, where he is taking people out, using them as art pieces. Now, in the comics, Muse was a mysterious, deranged artist, whose gruesome work of art was discovered after he anonymously sent the vigilante Blind Spot the address to the warehouse in Washington Heights where he planted it. This work consisted of a mural painted with blood from over 100 different missing people. So they're all setting up this without Blind Spot, of course, because we don't have that vigilante in the series, even though he was a huge part in the Muse storyline, even getting his eyes ripped out by Muse by the end of it. However, in the comics as well, Muse isn't inhuman. We're definitely not going into that in the series because they kind of seem to be going away from the Inhumans. Even in the comics, we haven't really been dealing with them. We're just mainly going towards mutant and X-Men. So they might make Muse a mutant instead, where we're starting to get more into those mutants in the MCU. Now, in the comics, his powers allow him to pull every bit of sensory information around him, making it so that Daredevil's senses cannot sense him. So I'm looking forward to seeing the confrontation and if he's going to have these powers just like the comics, or if he's just going to be more of just a guy who does grotesque art. Now, we do see the triggered mural once again in this, as well as a mural of Fisk, where it shows him and then his devil side just kind of teasing how Fisk is this evil person and people shouldn't be idolizing him. In the comics as well, Muse goes around the city painting vigilante murals all over the city in support of them as Mayor Fisk outlaws them. They're using the start of Muse's storyline and then another story from later down the road and melding them together to kind of fit into this Devil Reign storyline that we're going into that this show is following. So just really cool to see how they're all setting this up with Muse now being introduced into the show, which I'm actually surprised we've only been getting little teases to him, which means we'll probably be either getting him next episode or the episode after to lead into the final of the series, where we're going to start ramping things up and things are going to get more and more serious as the episodes progress. As we continue going, we catch up with BB and Daniel, who are at the bar getting drunk. Daniel mentions about Fisk's plan to redo Red Hook, as he's going to be dealing with a recycling company to start trying to clean it up, which is all just setting up more of the Red Hook port and what Fisk plans to do with it and how he plans to clean it up and redevelop the whole area. Now, we do get a moment later in the episode where BB writes that report and publishes it, pointing out that Fisk is killing the unions because he's not working with the city and instead he's going with an outside contract, making it so that no one's going to be cleaning up the city, as they're now leaving trash all over the place because they're kind of going on strike for what Fisk is doing and taking work away from them. Now, we will be talking more about that freak out Fisk had during that part a little bit later in this video, but while we're still in this moment with them leaving the bar, we do see a white tiger mural and we do see Muse's signature under it, proving that Muse has been going around drawing these murals all over the city. In this scene too, we also get a reference to Captain Planet, an old cartoon, which I think was just a nice little fun reference. But honestly, after all this Daniel messing up, it definitely feels like they're setting him up to die. Maybe something a little bit more along the lines where he's going to be like a tool for Fisk to use after he swears his loyalty to Fisk, setting up Fisk knowing he can't trust this kid. However, he could use him and use him as a pawn and maybe a scapegoat for something else down the line. Now, during this scenes, we do get a moment of this guy getting arrested across the street for shoplifting and stealing stuff from the bodega. And we find out later that his name is Leroy, and all he was arrested for was stealing the cereal, which honestly doesn't seem that big of a crime. And then the cops ate the cereal, showing how the cops are dirty, but also no one really cares because no one's doing anything about it. Which kind of ties into the next thing with the BB report that we hear, where they're talking to the citizens again and how no one trusts anyone in the city other than vigilantes who are actually doing the work and getting stuff done and helping the city properly, which the cops aren't doing. So just showing that distrust within the cops and Mayor Fisk and how normal citizens think that New York is in a really shitty place right now and that they need these vigilantes around to be able to survive and help them and fight crime. We also have more of Fisk and Vanessa in therapy, where we find out that Vanessa cheated on Fisk with Adam. This guy that we find out later is now locked up in Fisk's basement after he promised Vanessa he wouldn't hurt him. Instead, he just locked him up in a jail cell and won't let him out, making him his little prisoner that's just kind of stuck there until someone finds him. Or Fisk ends up killing him in the end of the day, because that's probably what's going to happen. However, it's interesting to see this therapy scene, finding out that Vanessa feels like half of her was taken away when Fisk left. I mean, to be fair, he had a pretty big reason for leaving after being shot in the head by Echo. So they're all just kind of showing how those events kind of ruined his relationship with Vanessa, how instead of dealing with his relationship, he left and ran away in a way. Even though it was to recover, he still went to go deal with stuff on his own rather than dealing with his wife, which is what a husband probably should be doing. So I'm very curious to see how they're going to be leading into his storyline with Vanessa, and how if they're going to stay together by the end of it, or if something else darker is going to happen and maybe Vanessa dies because of the other mobs or either Muse in the storyline. And I'm very curious to see how they're going to kind of deal with that as we go forward. But nonetheless, as we move forward in the episode, we find out that Kristen is sending Matt to go deal with Leroy, the one that got arrested at the start of the episode. And in the moment, she talks about how she's got her hands full with a Madison case, which honestly, this might not be a reference, but it feels like a fun reference to Madison from She-Hulk and Wong's best friend. So it'd be fun if that was the case, just kind of referencing it again, because it was a part of an MCU series and we all love Madison, right? She's one of the best characters, obviously. And it's just, if it is a reference to her, I love it. If it's not, I still think it's a reference to her and it's fun anyways. But when we get to Matt and Leroy in jail, it's actually a really interesting scene, but also bringing up really good points about how the system is broken. He was arrested for stealing $5 of goods, and now he's going to be sent to jail for over 30 days, which the last time he got sent to jail for 30 days, he missed his SSI meeting, which got him taken off benefits, and that put him on the streets. He had to eat out of dumpsters, and all he wanted to do was give himself something good for once, which was buying this cereal to actually have a proper meal in a way. And it just shows how he was thrown down by the system. The system failed him, and now he's being punished for that failure because he couldn't pull himself back up out of it. So I thought that was really interesting because it just shows that nothing is working right now. The system isn't working, the cops aren't working, like none of the proper systems in place here aren't working, and Vigilante seems to be the only one really doing anything to help the city, all setting up Matt's eventual return for becoming Daredevil, especially after the Frank Castle scene, which we're almost there and we will talk about it because that's one of my favorite moments from the episode. But during all of this as well, we do get a fun little nod to the Skrulls because Leroy asks if a Skrull could have done it, which is a reference to Secret Invasion where the president had announced to the entire planet that Skrulls were among them. So just actually tying back into the Skrull plot that I don't think we've heard anything else since that series. So I think it's fun. Even though the series wasn't good, it was nice to see that being referenced once again and not being forgotten about like most of the other plot points in the MCU. We also have Matt going to see Sophia to work out a deal for Leroy's case, which she won't do anything better. Eventually, Matt flirts with her like the charming guy he is and gets it down to 10 days. But they do mention that she's Latvian. And at first, when I first heard Latvian, I'm like, oh my God, it's a reference to Doctor Doom. It's Latveria. But obviously, Latvia is an actual country, so it's not talking about Latveria. However, I feel like they specifically chose Latvia to have that tease for Latveria, to tease us to what's to come for later down the road for the Fantastic Four, Doomsday, and all of that. Even if it's not a specific reference, that Latvia and Latveria, very close in name, and I feel like that's what they were trying to lead into, but weren't sure they were allowed to use that Latveria name or not. So, I mean, it might not be a reference. I feel like it's a cool little nod to it, even if it's not, and just let me know what you think in the comments down below. While Matt is leaving, though, we end up getting him running into Officer Powell, and he questions Powell about knowing what happened to White Tiger and how they sent someone to kill him, which I thought this was a really interesting scene because Powell is using his badge as like his authority to show that everyone in his family has been a cop, and that Matt can't intimidate him because he swore an oath to be this cop. Even though he's a dirty one, he still believes in the power that law enforcement holds, and that Matt should be listening to him, even threatening him about assaulting a police officer and interfering with an active investigation, which I feel like they're not going to be able to prove Matt did anything because they're the only witness, and then they have to explain why they were at the witness's house in the first place and what they were doing there. So it's an empty threat, and I do love in this instance how Matt is listening to his heartbeat to see if he's lying about knowing about what happened to Hector, which he is telling the truth because his heartbeat is steady. However, I feel like there's still something else here. Maybe he didn't know at this moment. Someone in the police force that we saw in the court scene definitely went off and killed Hector. We don't know exactly who did it yet, but Powell must know them. He must be in their little group of fanboys, like the Punisher says, that have been going around pretending to be the Punisher and worshiping him. But we will see. They're definitely like putting in these little plot points to set up what's to come with the Punisher, with the dirty cops, with the Red Hook port. Like these big moments are all going to come into fold in the next few episodes. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the little threads unravel as we get into these deeper plot points. And speaking of the Red Hook port, we do have Mayor Fisk going over there, going over his new plan, how he wants to redevelop the entire area because of it being a black eye to the city. And I'm really interested in seeing what they're going to do because they mentioned the mob shooting that happened there last episode, and they're definitely just setting up everything going on there with the shady business practices that happen in this Red Hook area, which honestly, I think with Fisk leveling it, redoing it all, he's going to be using it in his own way so that he can still be the Kingpin without anyone noticing and having it so it looks all in up and up. But he has his own secret plans that might be built into the new buildings that he can access without anyone else knowing about. However, they also mention in this moment with Buck telling him that the mobs are going to be a bigger problem. Either one of the bosses they're going to set loose or they all die. So they're just teasing either Fisk is going to take them all out so he can run control, or one of the other bosses are going to take out everyone else and then go after Fisk to try to take him out to become the new Kingpin, and then he's going to ultimately fail because Buck is probably going to kill him, and they're going to just lead into Kingpin being Kingpin still. So just another plot thread just kind of slowly unraveling as we figure out what's really going on with Red Hook Port. And I liked when they went back to the office and Fisk is losing his shit on everyone, and then Daniel stands up and says he was the one that did it, which again, it set up Daniel being kind of like this kiss ass. He can't forgive himself for what he did. He knows he messed up. He's swearing his loyalty to Fisk because he believes in him. And I think this is, again, setting up him being a little lanky for Fisk and someone Fisk can't trust, but he can use. Because if this kid is going to believe Fisk in every way possible, Fisk knows he can use him for whatever he wants. Setting up this moment for Fisk, sending him to go do something shady, or using him as a scapegoat, or honestly even getting him killed as he goes to set him up for an ambush or something along those lines. I just feel like something bad's going to happen to Daniel because of how much of a kiss ass he is, and I'm very curious to see how they're going to kind of deal with his character, because he seems like one of those characters that is going to get used as a scapegoat. But let me know what you think in the comments, and we can talk about our theories for that. Then we get to the moment we've all been waiting for, where Matt goes to the crime scene where Hector Ayala was killed. We end up finding the bullet casing in the storm drain and feels that there's a Punisher logo on it and goes to find Frank Castle. And he knew where Frank was. So that means he's been keeping tab on the Punisher this entire time so that he can always go and see him if he needed to confront him for something he did. Which when we get there, we get the moment of Frank charging at Matt and having him realize who he is and having this really intense scene about them talking to one another. And in the background, we can see that Frank has a hit list on the board. People's faces are crossed off with a red X, showing that Frank is still continuing to be his normal Punisher self as he goes around the city killing people. And this is also the moment where we find out that Frank knows about his fanboys running around. He knows that these cops and other people are pretending to be the Punisher or idolizing him, and he's not doing anything about it yet. Which, now that Matt has brought it up to him, I feel like that's going to get him out of his chair and go be like, okay, I can't stand for this shit anymore. I'm going to go deal with them. Because we know from the comics, the Punisher does not like cops copying him. The cops swore an oath they're supposed to uphold the law, but Punisher is not that. He's out for revenge. His goal is to kill anyone who is not a good person, who's a villain, because these dirtbags who get out don't deserve to live. And I like how they're kind of teasing this, because even though Frank knows he has fanboys right now, after his talk with Matt and all the emotional stuff that went on here, he's definitely going to get back up. We know he's going to be more in this season, so I feel like by next episode, we'll have Daredevil suiting up, and we'll have the Punisher suiting up, having them work together to go after probably the dirty cops or someone else that's maybe a bigger threat. And I'm just really excited to see them work together and just something else to happen with them all together. But I do like how Matt in this scene was trying to have that moral high ground, how he's telling Frank that he should be a hero instead of just being this killer. But I love Frank's talking about how he's not into wearing the costume and that hero shit. Like, he is not a hero. He is someone who goes and takes out and puts down the villains. So looking forward to seeing him come back, how we're going to deal with them, especially because we are going to be getting a Punisher special. So that's going to be fantastic. It's going to be dark. It's going to be gritty, and I can't wait to see how we kind of dive into that and what story it's going to follow. However, the moment that was the most important moment is how Frank is asking Matt about Foggy. He asked if he saved his friend's life and what it kind of went down to. Matt won't say his name. He's living in this denial that he can't say his best friend's name because he failed him. He's working in this system believing that's the only way to do things right rather than being a vigilante, but it's not working. Being a vigilante who was actually able to do some good. He was able to take people off the street, save people's lives. But by stopping to being that, he's doing a disservice to Foggy by just giving up, and he's not being that hero that he's supposed to be. Even though Foggy didn't always agree with him being Daredevil, Matt was still a hero nonetheless, and by backing down and running away from his problems, he's not doing anyone any good service. Frank even calling Matt out for saying that he hates himself because he can't admit any of this. He can't say his best friend's name, and Frank is the one making Matt wake up. He's making him realize his problems and making him realize where he's gone wrong, and even having Matt slap him upside the face and then apologizing to the Punisher. Who would do that? Like, Frank does not give a crap if you've hit him. He even mentions that it's the most honest thing he's done. So it's showing that Matt is living in this world of grief. It just shows that he's been running away from the problem. And we also got Frank calling out Matt for going to him for permission to go out back on the street, to be that vigilante, to cause some pain, because he knows Frank is the type of person who would tell him to get off his ass and get back out there. And I like Frank, how he's actually able to relate to Matt. How Frank, every time he kills someone, he hears his son's voice saying, "Get him." So it's just showing that Frank, after his trauma of losing his family, he uses that fuel to push him to go out and kill people, to go and take out the scum of the earth, because Frank's using that trauma to fuel him. It's fueling his revenge. He knows that he has his son's voice in his head reminding him that he has to take out these villains so that they don't do the same thing to other people's families. And I think it's really interesting to see how, even though Frank's, a killer, it's still showing where his moral ground is, where what he's willing to do to keep people safe. That's where he tells Matt that he's not doing anything, and if he continues to not do anything, it's going to get to him. It's going to keep getting worse and worse. And Matt breaking down is him starting to finally realize what he has to do. It's him having to put back on the Daredevil suit, him having to become a hero once again, because if he doesn't, the city's going to fall to ruin. And then, of course, the last little bit I want to talk about from this scene is Frank talking about how Bullseye is breathing the same air as Matt. Matt says he got a life sentence, but Frank asking, what about Foggy? Did he get a life sentence? Just showing how, Foggy didn't get to live, but Bullseye did. Bullseye got to live. He's in jail for life, but we know how jail works in the MCU and Marvel comics and literally any type of comics. Prisoners never stay there, which means Bullseye can get out at any moment, kill more people, and Matt didn't solve anything. He might have put him away, used the system, but the system sucks. The system doesn't work. And now Bullseye's going to get out again. He's going to try to kill some people, and Daredevil's going to have to stop him. He still won't kill him because that's against his rules, but he's going to have that revolving door of going to prison and then coming back out. And like Matt said, Foggy was the purest soul he met, and how they can never live up to his decency, which I think is setting up Matt to realize he has to live by what Foggy was. Foggy was a pure soul. He has to continue that legacy by being this hero and not crossing the line, but also just doing what he can to save people. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they continue to deal with Matt's trauma and how they deal with all of this, especially with the Punisher now involved. But let me know what you thought about those moments specifically, because I really like that scene from the entire episode. Both Charlie and John did a great job with their characters, and I'm honestly so glad they're back in the MCU, and I cannot wait to see many more years of these characters together. But after all that, we do get Fisk and Vanessa together once again, and how Fisk is opening up about his father, which is something that we did see in the Echo series, where he was not ever acknowledging what his father was. He was pushing back the trauma. Now he's kind of dealing with it, showing his wife how he feels, how he's taught by his father to know when someone was going to betray him. He learned the power of persuasion to make anyone do what he wants, but he never learned forgiveness, showing that for Fisk, it's harder to forgive Vanessa for what she did because he never learned how to forgive people. He always learned how to kill, how to beat people, how to get what his way by using that power that he has. So very interested to see how they're going to dive more into his character as he tries to heal himself when he's dealing with Vanessa, and how he's going to have to overcome it to be the mayor of New York. We then get Matt going back to his apartment. Heather is there, pretty much showing that the system is failing, just like how Leroy, he stole cereal and he's getting prison time for it. He could be thrown in jail for a long time for just a minor charge, and it's again just showing that the system is failing and that Daredevil has to come back to stop kind of things like this from happening so that people can be safe and feel safe in New York City. And that's where we have him laying in bed, we're listening to the city, getting out of bed, going up to his secret lair that's apparently on his roof, and getting his billy clubs to start practicing, because we're going to have him suiting up right away. He's suiting up next episode. He's coming back as Daredevil, and he's going to take the fight to New York City, even if he knows Fisk is going to be watching him. And when he goes into his base, we do see a bunch of Daredevil masks. We see the original Netflix series one that he has. We have the one from the beginning of this series that we saw in the first episode. We see his yellow mask, which is from his yellow suit that we saw him get in She-Hulk. It's also his first comic suit from Daredevil issue number 1 from 1964. We also see a black one, which is from the Shadowlands storyline. We also saw that black suit as well from the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man series. So I'm hoping that we'll be getting that suit at some point, maybe next season, and him actually wearing it, because that would be actually awesome. And then we also have this silvery white one that it's kind of hard to tell with the dark lighting, which could be a reference to his white suit that he got during Daredevil number 12 from 2023. It could be his Armored Avengers suit that's a little bit more silver from Daredevil number 321 from 1993. So really cool little references, and I'm kind of hoping we do get to see some of the suits up for some of these suits. Like we did see the She-Hulk one, we've seen the Netflix one, but we haven't seen the black one and we haven't seen the silver one. So would be really cool to see him get suited up in those just for some other occasion, just to see the full suit in live action. And the thing is with this moment too, is we also have Fisk going into his underground lair, where he has Adam, the guy who Vanessa cheated on with, locked away. He told Vanessa he wouldn't kill him, but he's locked away where Vanessa can't find him. And when he's walking down there, we see the painting, The Rabbit in the Snowstorm, which is the painting we saw in the Daredevil Netflix series. However, it has the blood on it from the end of Daredevil season 3, where Matt was beating the crap out of Kingpin, knocking his blood onto the painting. So he kept the painting as a reminder of what happened, and it didn't take the blood off of it. So really cool to see that come back, to have those ties to that series, but also just showing where Fisk is going. We have Matt, who went to the roof, the devil of Hell's Kitchen, going to the roof like an angel ascending, where the mayor of New York, the one that's supposed to be this angel, the kind of better person for New York, is going to the underground, the hells. So how their kind of perspectives have flipped, where before in the first episode, we had Fisk looking down on the city from the heavens, where Matt was on the ground looking up kind of from the underworld. So really interesting to see how they use this symbolism with these characters and how they're setting up all this stuff. And this episode was just honestly amazing. The Punisher stuff was great. The little tease for Muse was awesome. The Angela stuff at the start was awesome as well, just kind of teasing her revenge path, showing the pain in this girl after she lost her uncle. And I just generally really like what they're doing. Matt has gone on this journey of pain after losing Foggy. He hasn't been able to recover. And finally, after seeing Frank, he finally is able to wake back up, realize what he's not doing right. Even he kind of seemed like he was looking for forgiveness or kind of an answer, but Frank told him the truth. He gave it to him straight and showed him that, you know, he needs to stand back up and be that hero. Otherwise, he's just wasting what he has. He's dishonoring Foggy and he's not doing right by him. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how they're going to dive into that in the next few episodes and see Daredevil suit up once again. Because I want to get to see some Daredevil action. We got to get some suit now. We're 4 episodes in. We got the first episode where we got to see him suit up, and the second episode where he beat the crap out of the cops. But that's really about it. We need a little bit more, and I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to progress as we go on. But let me know, what did you think of the episode and the moments from within it? Were there any other Easter eggs and references you noticed? Let me know down in the comments, and we'll talk about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this Daredevil breakdown. And if you like this video, hit the like and subscribe button. It helps out the channel a lot. And you get to stay up to date with my Daredevil, DC, anime breakdown videos, and all of that fun stuff. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next week for the next episode of Daredevil Born Again.